Hi, I'm Parmela Janamaniam. I would like to present about my research, which is the effect of microeconomic factor towards the PARKSON Holding Berhad. Company background. PARKSON Holding Berhad is an Asian-based department store operator generally. PARKSON Holding Berhad is an investment holding company in Bursa Malaysia 2007. The company works in retailer sector. These brands are mainly centered around four main categories, which are fashion and clothing, cosmetics, accessories, household and electrical, and grocery and perishables. The research question. First, what does the impact of company specific factor internal factor of company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad? Second, what does the impact economic factor which is macroeconomic towards company of PARKSON Holding Berhad? Third, what does the company specific factor or internal factor and the economic factor which is macroeconomic towards company performance PARKSON Holding Berhad? Next will be the research objective. First objective is to examine the company specific or internal factor towards company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad. Second, to examine the economic factor which is macroeconomic towards the company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad. Third will be to examine the company specific factor or internal factor and economic factor which is macroeconomic towards company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad. Next, move on to scope of study. The study was focused on company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad. The element of company performance are taken from company performance of PARKSON Holding Berhad website and company annual report 5 years from 2015 until 2019. Methodology. Sampling technique. The company annual report from 2014 to 2018 was used to determine the relationship between the dependent variable, the company performance ROA, and the independent variable, the company specific factors or internal factors and macroeconomic factors. Next is research design. This study is descriptive study design. The model of very suitable because it helps define the analyze existing relationship comparative variable in specific studies. Statistics package for social science SPSS. SPSS analysis software platform that assists management and statistic analyze teams in processing and analyze complex statistics. In this study, one dependent variable, which is ROA, return on asset, and two category independent variable, which is firm or internal factor, macroeconomic factor were used. Finding descriptive table. Based on the table 4.1, the mean return on asset is 0.2935. This shows 5 years of 2015 until 2019. The PARKSON Holding Berhad averagely achieved negative 2.93 USD of income from 1 USD of asset. The next standard deviation of PARKSON Holding Berhad is 0.0495. The standard deviation is only PARKSON Holding Berhad is 4%. Then the operation ratio mean is 0.26 and has a standard deviation of 0.04. This shows the average operation of PARKSON Holding Berhad is 2.6 of company net sales and operation expenses. This shows only few percent of operation expenses that PARKSON Holding Berhad hold for 5 years. This shows this effective managing operation cost. The standard deviation of 4.76% are fluctuating to this data. Let's discuss about model 1. Model summary. Based on the table above, model 1 shows model summary of the return on asset ROA, the internal factor which is operating margin, average collection period, and the debt to income. The adjusted R square is 0.999 with a turbine Boston of 1.070. The standard error that estimate is 0.001682. This shows the 99.9% of variance in dependent variable which is written on ROA is explained by the internal independent variable which is operating margin, average collection period, and debt income. The balance about 0.01% adjusted R square is unable to explain. Next is coefficient. The table above explains coefficients of the dependent and independent variable which is written on asset and internal factors such as debt, income, average collection ratio, and operation margin ratio. This shows the internal factor is not significant to return on asset ROA with the p-value more than 0.10 except operation margin which is positively significant with p-value 0.011. This implies that these factors are not affecting the company performance of PARKSON Berhad except the margin, operating margin. Let's talk about the ANOVA. The table shows the ANOVA result of PARKSON Holding Berhad performance. The shows that significant level of internal factor towards the return on asset of PARKSON Holding Berhad. As we can see, the internal factors such as operating margin, average collection period, and debt to income are specific to the return of asset of PARKSON Holding Berhad. This implies when p-value less than 0.10, which is 0.021. Discuss about model 2. Based on the table above, the model 2 shows that model summary of return on asset ROA and the external factor which is exchange rate, inflation rate, interest rate. The adjusted R square for the exchange rate, inflation rate, interest rate is 0.912. The standard error of estimate is 0.047195. This shows about 91.2% of variance is dependent variable which is return on asset ROA is explained by the external independent variable which is exchange rate, inflation rate, interest rate. The result implies the PARKSON Holding Berhad performance is explained by the macroeconomic factor which is exchange rate, inflation rate, interest rate. The balance about 8.8% of adjusted R square is unable to explain. Next is coefficient. Table above explains coefficient of dependent and independent variable which is return on asset and external factors such as exchange rate, inflation rate, interest rate. It implies all the external factors are not significant to the return of asset ROA of PARKSON Holding Berhad, which shows all the p-value are more than 0.10. Next is ANOVA. The table shows the ANOVA result for PARKSON Holding Berhad performance. This shows the significant level of exchange factor towards return on asset of PARKSON Holding Berhad. As we can see, the external factor which is exchange rate, inflation rate are not significant to the return on asset of PARKSON Holding Berhad. This implies when the p-value more than 0.10, which is 0.189. Let's discuss about model 3. Based on the table above, the model 3 shows the model summary of the return on asset ROA, and the internal factor, which is current ratio ROE, average collection period, debt to income, operation ratio, operation margin, corporate governance, along with the external factor, which is unemployment, inflation rate, interest rate, exchange rate, and standard deviation. As we can see in R, just that R square is 0.999, which defined by the inflation rate, interest rate, and operation ratio. This shows the inflation rate, interest rate, and operation ratio is affecting the PARKSON Holding Berhad's performance. The balance of 0.1% of adjusted R square is unable to explain. Coefficient, the table above shows result the coefficient of return on asset and the both factor of in internal and external factor. Since there is no external factor that's significant to return on asset ROA, the PARKSON Holding Berhad, the table only contains internal factor which is affecting company performance, shows operation ratio, inflation ratio, interest ratio affecting the PARKSON Holding Berhad. Operating ratio is significant with p-value less than 0.5. The p-value of operation ratio is 0.012. Meanwhile, the p-value of operation ratio is 51.2121. In order for the company to perform well in future, it must some improvement in strategy and company owns management. Next is ANUA. The table shows the ANUA results of the PARKSON Holding Berhad performance. This shows the significant level of internal and external towards the return on asset ROA of PARKSON Holding Berhad. As we can see, the external factor, which is interest rate, inflation rate, and operation ratio, and one of the significant of return on asset of PARKSON Holding Berhad among other internal external factor. This implies when the p-value of interest rate, inflation rate, operation ratio is less than 0.10, which is 0.023, with mean square of 0.03. On the findings, liquidity risk, credit risk are common in risk that PARKSON Holding Berhad faced along the period of 2015 until 2019. PARKSON Holding Berhad should handle these risks from time to time in order to ensure the company making higher profit to boost its performance to create value of company. Based on the finding, PARKSON Holding Berhad capable to manage two risks, which is liquidity risk and credit risk, standard deviation while beyond on standard of benchmark. According to our mission, this industry should pay more attention to operation risk, liquidity risk, corporate governance risk, management, and credit risk. They should fulfill attention to this type of risk if the company takes action such as 100% hedge or partial hedge of the risk may be beneficial for the company. This move can make industry more aware and be alert any possible that may rise in industry. A few years ago, the retail industry isn't even cared about because they thought they were monopolized but now many retailer company provide better service than. As a result, risk management must manage them well in order to make their own interests reach and increase the company profit level. Thank you.